So, welcome to Global Notion platform, Tammy. Uh, as you know me, this is Ankur, this is Saili, and Saili, she is Tammy. I met her few years back in Himachal. She came in India in order to do a volunteer program, and she was in India for 15 days. I know her as a social worker and as a child therapist, and I was quite fascinated from her work, whatever she has done while she was working in Himachal. So, we are very glad to have you in our show, Tammy.
Wow. I'm so happy to be here and thank you so much for thinking about me.
Thank you. And thank you so much to give us your precious time so that our audience will understand and they will get a lot of knowledge from you. So before I start, I would like to ask you, please tell me about you and your work. What is basically child therapy, play therapy?
Yeah, so I have been doing play therapy. I started out in social work and then I've been doing play therapy for about 20 years. And after doing so much work with children, really recognizing what play therapy is, that all children communicate through play. Play is a universal language, and
Right.
that's how they communicate. So for us to try to talk to children about their feelings and keep working really further. And the most important way for us to be able to connect with children is through play. So you can't play in the past and you can't play in the present, in the future. It's the here and now. So when we think about worries and we think about anxiety, whether all the different things going on in the world, it's either thinking about what happened in the past or what's going to happen in the future.
Right.
But when we're connected with them, and play is universal, you all know what that play looks like when the children are humming and singing in pure joy. They're not thinking about all the other worries at home or in the world. They're just at play. They're not thinking about what time they need to be home. And that's that power of play, that if they could know how that feels in their body in times when there is stress and anxiety, then it's the best way for us to be able to help them with it. So when we take really stressful, scary situations and we're able to implement play, it's a way for them to be able to work it out. So in the playroom, when children come into my playroom, the rules of school and home are left out the door. And then deeper a child can go into imagination, and we meet them where they are, the deeper the healing begins. And their play begins to tell a story. So we look at this idea of mastery. So in their story, there could be more villains or more hard things. And it's how they work things out. It's how they problem solve. It's how they learn. If we just give children a behavioral list of all the ways they need to behave, we get nowhere and they push us back. So the most important thing, I believe, as a child therapist and about play therapy is us connecting with them through the relationship, and that we're truly trusting that the child is going to take us where they need to go all through the play. Because when they're playing this out, it's that full sensory experience that they're
Right.
literally playing it out and they're working it out in a really safe way.
That's great. Wonderful.
Very fascinating. That sounds so amazing.
It, it's beautiful, and then more people really need to understand the importance of play and the importance of working with children, that when we try to do so much of the cognitive and trying to get them to express how they're feeling, we're really not getting anywhere. And that children need, we a lot based on Bruce Perry's work and what we know about the brain, we call it this bottom up approach, that we first have to regulate their little bodies and get their bodies in sync through having things like catch or blowing bubbles and doing things for the children to be able to feel safe in order for them to even try to start a relationship and to do any processing. I mean, Ankur, you saw when we were in the migrant camps,
Exactly.
how we were able to do things like hand-based
Exactly.
games, and we were told at first that the kids aren't going to learn anything because they're so all over the place. And when we did through appropriate touch and through backstories, that they did the letters in English on their back. And I have some little videos. I don't know if you have any of those to show, but they were so wonderful being able to do that. And when we even look at touch, and when we look at the kids in the migrant camps, they just were very impulsive. They had no boundaries, they had no rules. And when we were able to give rules, that asking permission, can I touch you? Is it okay to touch your back? And being able to give those rules and boundaries, it made them feel safer. Because when we don't have rules, it becomes very chaotic. But the important thing about the play is, in the playroom, as long as they're safe, it's a place they can make the rules. Because children need to have some type of power at some time than always having adult power. So for us to enter their world and to be a part of their play, that's like really where the healing begins. So I'm whoever they want me to be in the play. I could be the bad guy, I could be the good guy, and I whisper it. So I'll say, do you want me to be the good guy? Do you want me to be the bad guy? And I don't talk about school. I don't talk about mommy being mean to you. It's just within the play, and they are navigating it, and they are feeling the power, which basically raises their self-esteem, that they have some power and some control over their world, which is really hard when they feel out of control in their world.
Yeah. But I think
that's perfect.
Where child therapy begins, like where the play therapy begins, I think the first and primary thing that I am confused about is, how do you strike a rapport with the kid? How do you build that safe environment where the child would feel safe to project his internal world onto the playroom?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. And if I was hoping to be in my playroom today so you guys could see the space, because there's many videos I have also on YouTube on it, but they walk in and it's just this magical world for them. They know it's safe because it's their world of toys, and it's just not very adult centered.
Right.
And so when I first meet a child, if I always try to have the parents as a part of it for the first session. And that first session is where they start with a game of catch with each other. There's nothing more beautiful than having a game of catch, and each person says something they love about each person in the family. And then they do a story together. They blow bubbles back and forth together. So if you ask a child if they had one wish, or if they could be anywhere in the world, all they want to do is play with their parents. They want their parents to be with them. They want their parents to connect with them. So when we bring in, we call this attachment-based play therapy, where parents are playing with their child, where they're doing hide and seek, or they're, just having something as simple as a catch. It's that relationship that the parents are not on their phone, they're not busy doing anything else. And I tell parents they can read all the parenting books and do all this other work, but the most important thing is for a parent to learn how to have special playtime with their child. It's not even the therapy for me, it's how do I teach parents to unplug, be 100% present, be able to have this time when the child gets to decide, and the child is in control, and the parents are actually following the child's lead and respecting that. And even if the child is doing aggressive play, we honor that because we know it's in them. So it's better for them to be playing aggressively than to be playing aggressively with their sibling
Right.
or at the playground. So they need to get it out, and we need to let them get it out in a really safe way. When parents see children play aggressively, they become very upset and they think there's something wrong with their child, when it's part of them figuring things out. If kids are just playing with rainbows and unicorns, they're not getting into anything. The conflict is where the healing begins. The conflict of their stories and their play is how they figure it out. Now, if parents or therapists try to go in and make their play a teaching lesson, you will lose them. And they won't get anywhere. But if we trust them and we're a part of their play, it's amazing how kids figure it out. And they figure it out, and they sometimes first have to get to a lot of destruction and a lot of messy stuff in order to be able to then come to a resolution of their play. Does that make sense?
Right.
Very much, very much. Actually, I find the concept very Rogerian. Like, you accept the child as a complete human being who's full of all the resources to navigate through, and giving that right and that space and freedom must be beautiful.
Absolutely. And that's really, it's beautiful. And it's holding a sacred place for them. We are the container. We are holding the space to create this safety for them to be able to navigate their world however possible. So one of the things that I specialize is something called sand tray therapy.
Yes.
So I have all different types of sand and many different toys. I don't know what's going to happen with the coronavirus and those different pieces of the playroom. But it's really this idea that we have our conscious mind and unconscious mind, kind of based on Carl Jung and Jungian work, and that our conscious mind and unconscious mind are often in conflict. But by just taking these toys and placing them in the sand, you bring a resolution to this conflict. So it's an incredibly powerful tool. I do my own sand trays all the time. I do family sand trays and couple sand trays, and that sand tray work, there's sand tray and sand play, and sand play is really worked it's specifically on Carl Jung and his Jungian work. But it's incredibly powerful because you're navigating the world through toys in the sand, which is pretty amazing. And what you see is you watch their stories over time. They become so resilient and so strong, and their stories change without us teaching them anything, but they're figuring it out on their own. And it's really recognizing that they're able to do it when you're giving them that type of power.
Perfect.